All right, guys, this is Ian from Jean-Luc Colombo, and he's going to talk you through the next wine. So, Ian, if you could just get started and tell me who you are and what we're drinking.
Well, I'm very happy to be here. I'm really sorry that I couldn't be there in person. I love your state. I love visiting it, and especially when I work with Mike. Um, so I am general manager for Jean-Luc Colombo. I travel the United States promoting his wines. I've been in the business for over 40 years, even though I look like I'm 21.
You do.
But I've been in it for a while, and it's my passion to be involved with wine throughout the United States and throughout the world. My association with Jean-Luc dates back to 1990 when he wandered into my office when I was running a distributor in New York City. And he and I kind of bonded. And you can see his picture in the back. We look almost alike. We consider ourselves half brothers. So I've become a spokesperson for Jean-Luc throughout the United States and beyond, by the way. So let me tell you a little bit about the wine. The wine is called uh, Côte du Rhone Les Abeilles. Les Abeilles means the bees, and you can see on the label there are little bees that are elevated. And the concept between this about this is that Jean-Luc has always been sustainable. He's always been about nature. His property is organic. Um, his wines are all vegan because they do not use animal product in their fining and filtration processes. But he created Les Abeilles Blanc and Rouge because of his desire for sustainability and for recognition about what the world needs to do with wine and with the economy or the ecology. Um, it's a very interesting phenomena what's going on with the bees in that they're dying. And we have a problem if we don't start recognizing that the bees pollinate 75% of what we eat. So Jean-Luc actually makes a donation with every bottle that's sold to UC Davis's entomology department to fight what they call CCD, colony collapse disorder. It is an international problem, and it's one that we have spearheaded here in the United States. If you ever get a chance to go to Davis, California, where the university is, there's actually a plaque made out to Jean-Luc and the old owner of Palm Bay for starting this donation over 8 years ago. And every year we donate and get involved. It is, in fact, even morphed into being something that's being done in the UK because of the same situations occurring there. So let me tell you a little bit about the wine. It is a Côte du Rhone, meaning that it's from the hillside of the Rhone Valley. It is made up of 80% Claret and 20% Roussanne. Now, I'm very particular about the varietal. Claret is an indigenous varietal to the Rhone. It is one that Jean-Luc loves really dearly. In fact, he's gone to the extent of making a 100% Claret high-end wine, expensive uh, from the south of France because his personal love for that one varietal. So this is 80% Claret. The Claret's kept in stainless steel to keep it fresh. And then it's 20% Roussanne, which is the classic large varietal white varietal coming out of the Rhone, the northern Rhone. Roussanne is all about yellow fruit and citrus qualities, a complexity, a depth that really brings, even though it's only 20%, it brings real richness to the varietal and also great length. So when you marry Claret, which gives you delineation and a much broader kind of spectrum of flavor with the Roussanne, which widens it, it makes for an excellent Côte du Rhone Blanc, and also one that you can keep for years. I've had this wine up to 5, 6 years old, and it's been only getting better. So the 2017, by the way, it's in screw cap. I hope you enjoy that. But the
Absolutely.
2017 received 90 points by the wine enthusiasts,
Nice.
and it is the bestseller Côte de Rhone Blanc that we've ever had in the marketplace. I do hope that that's what you're tasting. If not, you're tasting 2016, which really got 88 points, but is phenomenal, high quality, and has that extra year of punch, so that it really gives you some added depth to the wine. And with that, I say, on my name, Ian Dabrowski, I'm with Jean-Luc, and I would be glad to come and pitch this or taste this with you at some later date after, of course, the pandemic is gone and we're all back to normal, and give you a broader perspective of what Colombo is about, the
Yeah.
star coming out of the Northern Rhone.
So, kind of traditionally, Marsanne's a little lower acidity, but our Marsanne is actually, I think, a little cooler than southern France. Um, so there's a bit more acidity than a traditional Marsanne from Jaboulet or whatnot. Um, but I really love the aromatics. Actually, on both the wines we're tasting today, and that's I was thinking about it when I cracked them this morning. Yes, we drink wine in the mornings.
I love it.
um, but both these are very aromatic wines. Both the Marsanne and the Grenache, and for that reason, they can oxidize kind of easily. And that's kind of why we put them in the screw cap. That's something that you'll probably notice. And they're not cheap wines. We really do that for purpose. It really locks in. Grenache in particular can get oxidized fairly easily. So the screw cap doesn't let the wine breathe at all. So it really locks in those aromatics and preserves the wine for a longer period of time. The Marsanne's the same way. Marsanne, in general, I get a lot of, there's a lot of minerality on the nose. Peach is another one that I get a lot. And then like the wet river stones.
Maybe even fennel or licorice or something in there too for me.
Fennel, yeah, I get fennel or sometimes like a kumquat zest. I know that's pretty particular, but there's a citrus rind quality as well to it, and I do always get like a fennel-y, like a fennel pulp.
Is there a little Roussanne in here too, or is this all Marsanne?
No, there is a little Roussanne in there. So one thing about Marsanne is it has that nice fleshiness to it, but it can be a little hollow in the middle. And that the Roussanne is nice and kind of oily and adds a little fatness and a little richness to the wine. So we usually use about 15 to 24%, somewhere in that range, depending on the vintage, just to kind of round out and fill in that hole in the middle. And then the Marsanne's great young, but it also gets these nice little honey and kind of nut notes as it ages. And it's one of those wines where I like it fresh, but I also like it aged sometimes. And it really depends on kind of, what you're eating. If you're eating shellfish, for example, I think I'd want it nice and fresh. But if I was eating, some like a white meat, a chicken or a pork with maybe a savory kind of cream sauce, I think I'd want it a little more aged.
say. All right, next up, we're going to talk about Charles Smith, and we have Susie McDonald, who is going to be here, and she's being so sweet. And also, she was on one of my past podcasts. We'll probably talk about that later. But anyways, yeah, so tell us about the Qupe Vitners Viognier that we are about to taste, or might be tasting right now.
Well, yeah. Hey, thanks for having me. Susie with Qupe Vitners and Wines of Substance. And the Viognier that you guys are about to try is extra, extra special. It's one of my absolute favorite Viogniers on the market, period, bar none. And you're about to taste why. So Washington State is a really special spot for anything Rhone related. So Syrahs love it, Grenache loves it, believe it or not, Mourvedre loves it. But the unsung hero of pretty much everywhere is Viognier. And Viognier is often done, but not often done well. And I think we really kind of, because climatically, we're very, very similar to the Rhone. So a lot of our vineyards run along some of the same parallels of some of these sort of benchmark vineyards that you find in throughout France, whether it's Rhone, whether it's Bordeaux, whether it's Burgundy. The Rocks district, which is known for the giant river rocks that are running through it, that are very reminiscent of the galets of Châteauneuf-du-Pape, are definitely hallmarks of the sort of soil typicity that really just makes Rhone varietals thrive. And so this is slightly north of that, so sort of slightly north and center in the South Yakima region. And it's a little bit removed from the Rocks district, but Washington is basically like a mini France. You're going to find all kinds of amazing proclivities for these varietals. And the thing that our Viognier really excels at is you get all of those wonderful sort of mineral characteristics and those floral components without that sort of heady perfume note that kind of you can taste on the palate. So when I drink Viognier, I want to smell all of that really wonderful sort of aromatic floral characteristics, that gardenia, that honeysuckle, but I don't want to necessarily taste it. Otherwise, it's like, we all know what it's like when you encounter too much perfume. It's just, it's not fun. It's sort of the essence of something rather than drinking it, which is something where we really excel. And this particular vineyard is really special. It's the Art Den Hode vineyard, which is, we have a really long time partnership with the Den Hode family. They're one of the premier grape growers in Washington State. And this is a particularly high altitude portion of the vineyard. It's at 1,300 foot elevation. So it's one of the cooler sites from all of our grapes and all of Washington State. There's not a lot of elevation change throughout Washington. So our varietals and our vineyards tend to actually be able to kind of climb those altitudes, which is cool because you get really nice, long, slow, cool growing periods. And this particular vintage, the 2018 vintage, was a dry and mild season for us. And so it really just kind of allowed the Viognier to kind of have a long, slow, relaxed, cool ripening period. So you get all of that beautiful, voluptuous fruit characteristic and all of that wonderful perfume without that kind of floral, heady, kind of almost overwhelming characteristic on the palate. It's very lean, linear, you get bright acidity, and there's wonderful minerality. And so that's what makes our Viognier pretty exceptional. 5 months on the lees in barrel in 100% French oak, and it's just you'll pick up lots and lots of mineral characteristics and beautiful floral notes on the nose, and just really beautiful stone fruit on the palate, which I think is exactly where you want some Viognier to be at.
So, Mesa Wine in a nutshell, we were born in the 2004. The new company owned by my family started in the 2007. At the end of 2017, we give the majority of the stock to the Mazzotto family. And now we are proudly part of Santa Margherita Group. It has been a very nice marriage, very important for us, very useful. They gave us not only more power, but they supported us in the right way. They shared our philosophy. They never changed anything about in terms of wine. How do we cultivate the vineyards? How do we make the wine, etc., etc. And that's very important. That's very important. That means that we are on the right way, and they just recognize it. And I want to hope the same for Marzotto family. Well, actually, we manage around 80 hectares. Exactly are 78. 66 are owned by ourselves. The other 12, we look carefully that people follow our instruction, because it's a long time that we started to be organic in vineyards. Not only vineyards, we are making a lot of steps to be greener and greener and greener, starting from the pack until the recycling of the water that you use in the vineyards, etc., etc. Mainly we produce Vermentino and Carignano. Then you can add some Cannonau and Syrah, because we are owner of 5 hectares in Syrah, here in the southern part of Sardinia. And we produce a 100% Syrah grape wine. And what can I say? Mainly we produce red wine, but Vermentino is not very far. We can say 40% and 60%. Curiously, Sardinia is an island stuck in the middle of the sea, but traditionally the wine from Sardinia are red, and the food from Sardinia is not fish, but meat. Yeah,
that's interesting.
Yeah, because for us, seashore beaches means just one thing: a lot of problem and danger. From the sea always arrive the pirates, Muslim, or anyone that want to conquer the island. First of all, the Spaniard that brought to us most part of the grape that actually we cultivate. Our Cannonau, I showed the bottle, Primo Scuro. It's a Cannonau that we conceived and we made to have a more elegant and modern Cannonau. It's 100% a Cannonau, but we act in a way that we don't have a lot of extraction. So maceration has been, it was not so long. We're talking about 1 week, days. Maceration as well as being concentrated in a short time. So you have a 14 alcohol volume Cannonau, where you enjoy more the fruit than the power, more the pleasure to drink than the body, the structure of this wine. This is a typical Cannonau that you can share with friends in a normal dinner with a lot of pleasure. That's the reason why we use stainless steel only. Stainless steel only permit us to be more elegant, to achieve more finesse. The color is not so dark, so plenty. Usually the color of the Cannonau is not very, very, very dark. It's a little bit far from the Syrah or the Cabernet. If I have to get a nuance that can help me to understand when I have a Cannonau in my glass, look for the violet, purple.
That's
okay. Light purple. There is a flower that we call violetta, violet, and we have to look for this kind of flower in your nose. Obviously, then you have red berries, red fruit, and that's all. Enjoy.
Lots of red fruit.
The vineyards are trained in a two-way. Most part is a spurred corner system with a little part of berry that came from the bush tree, the Albarello vineyards. The smallest part coming from the Albarello vineyard, bush vines, give us more concentration more intensity. The second part help us over more elegance and fruit. Enjoy.
This is delightful. I could drink this bottle sitting here talking to you very easily.
Yes. And this was the goal that we were looking for, and maybe we reached it. It's simply a question of philosophy and objective. We have this goal to make a very enjoyable, a very drinkable Cannonau. We are so proud, to be honest, to say, hey, honey, hey, Mike, wine guy, if you look for something strong, something real traditional, almost 16 Celsius, alcohol volume, this is not your wine.
Right.
Then we have a stronger, a deeper kind of Cannonau that the name is Smoro, but this is the Cannonau that we produce mainly.
So Matt Fowles, this is the Shiraz from Victoria that is in the glass in front of you right now. And I'm going to just kind of let Matt take it away. Tell me a little bit about this. Tell me how it compares to some other regions of Syrah or Shiraz out there.
Yeah, so I think when people think about Australia, they think of deserts and beaches. And the reality of our continent is it's every bit as diverse as the USA in climate. And we're right down in that bottom southeast corner. We're actually in an alpine region, the Strathbogie Ranges. And with that alpine region comes altitude, cool weather. We'll get flurries of snow in winter. So it's actually a cool climate region, and the wine style reflects that. Barossa, big and muscular, often made in an extracted style, elevated alcohol, high oak. We would be the absolute opposite end of the spectrum. So, we call our Shiraz, but many with the same style would call it Syrah. So it really is that Syrah style. We're more often compared to the Rhone as a style than we would be Barossa. So really, I think worlds apart from what many people know from Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. And to talk about yours in particular, and I will reference the podcast, so when we're talking about this, everybody can go back and watch that from earlier. But to kind of touch on it, the entirety of this particular line in your wine is so fun to me, which is it's all based on pairing, and specifically this line is based on all with game. Can you speak to that? I think that what you just said about your style already says half of it, but.
Well, that's it. So, I'm a mad foodie, and wild food has become my obsession. So it might even be my lead passion ahead of wine, but only by a little bit. But when you not only does our climate allow us to make a wine of this style, but we have a style preference for elegance and restraint and aromatics. And that's because with wild meat in particular, it's lean and dense. And so we don't want a wine that's extracted and full on. Your palate's already been challenged. And so we look for a very silky structure. Mm-hmm. But importantly, some people would describe game as pungent or full on. And usually that's a reference to aroma. So we actually want an aroma in this wine that will kind of match the power of the aroma in the game, but then a structure that will complement the structure of the game and what's happening on your palate. So yeah, I'm right into that sustainable living. Mm-hmm. We eat the whole beast, ethical hunters, and then this wine we see as the perfect fit with that, both in a philosophical sense, the way we make it sustainably, but also in a food and wine matching sense.
Well, it's a delicious wine. I think it's going to go great with whatever we're eating right now.
So ex Umbris is Latin for out of the shadows, and it came about, it's just one of those things that when nature gives you lemons, you make lemonade, and so in 2002, we had one of our vineyards, Lewis Vineyard in the Columbia Valley, was totally engulfed by a wildfire, and but it's a right at harvest time. And it was before I ever had even, thought about the term smoke taint. I had no idea. I mean, we literally couldn't get to the vineyard to pick. And the fire trucks went in and parked in the vineyard and worked out from the vineyard because it was totally surrounded. So that the end posts of the vines were charred. Some of the vines were charred, and but it was close enough to Mill Creek, which is the local little depression there, that the smoke stayed in the vineyard, and then it literally permeated through the skins of the grapes. And Syrah has those natural smoky components. In fact, the test that we take to see whether or not we have smoke taint in our wines, you can actually have no smoke taint, and the Grenache, or excuse me, Syrah itself will actually show it. Yeah, because it's a natural component to Syrah. And so that's why when you take a look at some cool climate Syrah like Côte Rôtie, you tend to have that kind of that gamey smoked meat quality, in the just naturally there in the wine. And so when I had tasted this fruit, I was like, it tastes like someone just like sprinkled charcoal on it. I mean, it really was pretty gross. And but it was time to pick. So I picked, and so during the fermentation, you could actually smell a little bit of, and basically what happens is it's, these two components, and they end up being even more extreme after fermentation. So sometimes you don't even notice it. You taste it a little bit, but after fermentation, they really become pronounced. And so it was after fermentation that we put the wine in the barrel, and we could have swore you open up the bung and, it might have been coming out. I mean, it was terrible. And to this day, and terrible in the sense, as a winemaker, you kind of have this ideal, what you want when you're making a wine. So for me, when I'm making Syrah, I love like the perfumed end of the spectrum. Syrah is a chameleon, it can give you, in a very warm climate, it can give you this big, a lot of alcohol, a lot of spice, a lot of fruit. And in the really cool climate, it's white pepper and clove and those other kind of spice components more that you equate with cooler climate and acid. And so you never know what you're going to get. And so as a winemaker, you kind of have this paradigm. This is what I want. This is what I'm shooting for. And when that doesn't happen, you're not necessarily disappointed, but you're like, this is not what I wanted to make. And so in 2002, I remember tasting the wine and saying, do I dump it down the drain or do I make the wine? And I had a fairly prominent wine writer from the Wine Spectator come in, and I literally said, hey, this is the conversation I had. And he looked up at me and it's just like, are you serious? You're actually thinking about dumping this down the drain? I love this. I think this is fun.
That's awesome.
And like, well, I'm glad you think it is, because I think it's disgusting. It was like licking an ashtray. And so, and this is a way of saying that sometimes as a winemaker, you make wine that you don't like. And that happens. I usually try not, I want to a little bit like your baby, and you want to like your baby, and sometimes your baby's ugly. Well, I had an ugly baby, and so I was like, what the hell do I do with this wine? And so
that's great.
I thought, okay, I'm going to make this wine, and it'll be, a one-off. I'm going to explain that I really did not intend to make this wine. So, I too read all my medieval works in Latin, and there's a great Latin expression called ex umbris et imaginibus in veritatem. So out of the shadows and images into truth. And it's a play on Plato's cave allegory, where you don't necessarily see the essence of something. Sometimes you just see it by its accidents, by its shadow. And then, once you really come to know it, the light goes on. It's like, hey, that's a dog, that's a tree. Okay, I only saw the shadow, and I assumed that's what it was.
It's a perfect name. This is great.
And it was like, you know, when I made this wine, I had to come out of the fog of the smoke and into the bright, you know, sunshine during harvest time. And so I made the wine. I explained on the back that it came from a fire, and, you know, and I used that little tiny strip. I literally typed it on my computer, slapped it on a bottle. I had bottled the wine. I hadn't labeled it, and I gave it to the printer and said, "Hey, can you print that?" And he goes, "Is that the label?" I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, it's like a sticker. I'm just gonna put a sticker on there and explain it away, and I'll never make this wine again." And it sold out overnight.
It's great.
People loved it. I'm like, "You really like that wine?" And so I have a bunch of this in my cellar, and every once in a while I'll open it up. And, you know, especially on a barbecue, you have to have it at a barbecue. And people are like, "Oh, I love this wine." I'm like, you know, I still hate this wine.